going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Wheel Wednesday Behind the Wheel podcast. I'm Scott from Konig, Jared from Konig. Welcome to the podcast. How are you? Nice to see you. We hope you're doing super well.
Yeah. I feel pretty well.
Good
for now.
I was talking to them, but I hope you're well as well.
Yeah. I know.
So we've talked about this before about how we have these random we'll call them carguments.
Ooh, I like that.
Know, yeah,
I like that a
lot. About different things around the office, and we were talking about it because there's a few guys here that are talking about getting. Well, you just got a new daily driver.
I did.
So there's a few guys here that are talking about getting some new daily drivers. Winter's approaching, and as winter approaches, generally that's the time where if you have that car that's good for the summer, we're transitioning, or it's maybe just time for some of the guys to get a new ride, right? Mm-hmm, so one of the conversations that came along is, can you make a used car that maybe has, hundreds of thousands of miles on it?
Like mine.
Right. Can you make it feel newer? Can you make it feel like it's more in new condition? A lower mileage cream puff. Can you take a big mileage car or vehicle and make it feel like it's a low mileage vehicle, right?
Yeah, and we're talking about without, doing like engine swaps to make
no restorations here. We're not talking about these big dollar things. We're talking about like, hey, I picked up a used car.
Right.
And now I have this used car and I want to be able to put a little bit of money into it. Maybe $1,000, $1,500, but I want it to be a little bit more reliable, and I want it to feel like it's a much lower mileage version of itself.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we were having this conversation around the office, and we're talking about different things, and some of it was debate and some of it wasn't. So we're kind of going to have this debate with you, and if you have any thoughts or different opinions, throw them down below. It's interesting. I think, I have purchased a lot of cars, and I know you have
more
too.
Than me. Yeah.
Well, but you've had your fair share.
A decent amount. Yeah.
And the one thing I know is from experience, and I say this maybe from a slightly different point in life than you do.
Right.
But I've purchased used cars with the intention of putting my wife and kids in them.
Yeah.
And I want them to feel as good as they possibly can.
Right.
When they're in the car, right? Even if the car is not a brand new car.
Right.
So there's some things that I have traditionally done to these cars to make them feel better out of the gate.
Okay.
Right? So I'll lead in with those few things, and then we'll go back and we'll touch upon
we'll riff,
them.
right? Yeah. Okay.
So the first thing, my big thing is whenever I get a car that's kind of maybe a little bit more used than the average bear. I throw a round of tires on it. I throw in a new round of shocks, shocks, struts, and traditionally I will do a full round of brakes. And
regardless of whether they're bad.
So bad is an arguable point, but I would say, like, for example, for me, when I look at brakes, if the rotors have some really good visible grooves in them, if the pads are below 50%,
right,
if the struts are clearly, like, even if they've been on there for 5 years, like, they still have probably more life in them, they're not leaking, but they're not, like, you could tell they're then I do that. And if we get tires that I feel like have been on there for a number of years, even if they have some tread left, I generally try. This is a little bit more extreme. Like, this is maybe not. I wouldn't do it for my car, but if you're trying to make your car feel and drive like it's a much lower version of itself, then yeah, I throw new rounds of tires on it.
Yeah, and I mean, so that's actually the perfect example, or my new car rather is the perfect example, because I bought it with mismatched tires.
Okay.
So
sure,
tires are a definite
right
first thing that I have to do.
How many miles does your new daily have?
186,000
okay,
miles.
We're not mentioning the car. We're just saying it's 100. So it's got 186,000 miles. So using the example I just gave you,
yeah,
we throw a new round of tires on it. Now, don't get me wrong. Yeah, I know there's a global supply shortage and things are more expensive, but
Yeah.
you can still, especially in the size that your car came with, you can still find, for about $400, you can find a new set of tires that has maybe not the best brand name, but good overall, all season, mud and snow rated, tire. So let's say we throw $400 into a new set of tires, and now Rock Auto is my go-to for a lot of the replacement parts.
Hell yeah!
So you know that you're probably going to be able to find a full round of struts out the door for about $200.
Well, now here's an interesting thing.
Yeah.
Just to bounce off that point real quick.
Sure.
I did actually go on to Rock Auto recently.
Okay.
Because, some of my fenders are messed up on it.
Right. So you're going for the big stuff.
However,
Yeah.
the parts were reasonably priced.
The shipping.
The shipping has gone up tremendously.
Yeah, that's fair.
Tremendously.
That's fair.
So, I was going to be paying a pretty penny to get the stuff here. So,
but you could also argue that the most likely case for that has to do with the fact that you were buying bigger pieces, size-wise.
Sure, but
what around?
So I knocked off. So I'll give you an idea of what the list was that I had, that I was about to just spend on everything.
Okay.
Front and rear fenders.
Got it.
One front axle.
Okay.
A rear diff bushing.
Okay.
And I think that was it.
Okay. Doesn't
So
seem
you
like a
would think-
huge list.
Right. It wasn't a huge
Parts
list.
total, we were about.
250.
All right, that seems right. And then,
But then shipping was about the same cost.
yeah. So
So, but I took off
the
fenders.
fenders, and what happened?
It was still pretty high. I took off the axles, and then it was reasonable.
Yeah, that's strange. Look,
So-
I'm not sure about that whole situation, but I'll speak in normal sense. Generally,
Okay, sure.
generally, you can get a round of shocks, $200, right? You throw a round of tires, that's $400. You have options to get, a decent quality rotor, like a Centric or something like that, which is, if I'm correct, that is made by Power Stop. I think Centric is a Power Stop brand.
Might be. I know that I put them on the Baja.
It's one of the more popular brands, but it's one of the
sure.
lines for them.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so you can get a good quality Centric rotor, and then in addition to the rotor, you usually can find a set of pads, and they have those combo deals. Where so what I'm
Yeah,
saying is
yeah.
you throw another, depending on which vehicle it is, obviously, right? Like you buy a 911, most likely it's not going to be the same price. But you buy like a Toyota Camry or a daily driver, like one of the mainstream Altimas, stuff like that. I think you're going to find that, for $200, I don't want to say corner, but a front or rear, you know what I mean? A pair is what I was looking for. I think you'll find that you'll be right in that ballpark of a good ceramic pad. So you're not getting a metallic pad. You're getting a good stopping pad.
Right.
It doesn't have not a tremendous amount of dust buildup, and you're getting a new set of rotors. So right there, I'm gonna explain why those are my go-to items for cars right off the bat. I mean, they're probably obvious. But
I was just going to say, I think it's pretty obvious. It's
Yeah.
because those are the main items that you use while driving.
Well, I actually think it's another thing, which is why I think it makes it feel so much better. And it's just that those are the things that tend to lead to the feeling of crappiness in a car.
Okay. Yeah.
When you accelerate or you stop hard, the tires really do a lot of work. And when you have good tires, you don't think anything of it. When you have poor tires or marginal tires, all of a sudden everything feels real sketch. So I think that the tires do a good job. Plus, when you put a new set of tires on it, the car does ride better for a while. You know what I mean?
Assuming you put the right air pressure in.
Well, okay.
Not
We're
everybody.
assuming
Not
that you
everybody
ins-
does that.
We're assuming that you're installing these parts correctly.
Yeah, yeah.
But so there's that. And then also when it comes down to shocks, that's going to take out any of the excess rattling, bumps and bruises and stuff like that, and also the dampening that you lose from a shock that's already worn. But what I like even more about the shock itself is the fact that it's causing me to dive into that corner. I'm going to have to take that corner apart to put the new shock in, or have to at least get to a point where I'm staring at other suspension components in that corner.
Oh, I see. So you're using it as an inspection opportunity also.
I'm also going to get a good visual, and if there's anything wrong while I'm in there, ball joints, inner tie rod ends,
like my rear diff bushing.
Yeah, like rear
or mount, whatever.
Sure, bushings. If you see anything like a really famous one besides strut tops for like Subarus is like when you start to get the end links on a car that break.
Oh yeah, because most of them are just rubber.
Yeah, a lot of times, so they're plastic end joints, like almost pushed into like these metal fittings.
Yeah.
And when they break, a lot of times it's not super obvious, but the car gets sloppier. And people diagnose, they just chalk that up to age. But like you will notice it. So the end link goes bad, and now all of a sudden, in some cars, you'll actually even have an audible clunk coming from that end link. So these are parts that generally aren't that expensive. You really are paying for labor when you take them to a shop. So if you're capable of doing it yourself, the fact is that those parts could really lend itself to the car really feeling much better right away.
The only thing you would need to pay for if you did it yourself was an alignment, theoretically.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, if you really are that technical and you have some know-how, you could do your own alignment.
Right.
That I do my own alignments. Not for like my daily drivers, but like for for my Z or for some of the cars that like I don't want, whatever. So that's a whole other story for another day. Brakes. Brakes generally, especially when they're worn, the more you use them, the lower the pedal feel is. You know what I mean? Additionally, when you have that worn area, sometimes you get the vibration in the pedal from the warping of the rotors, right?
Oh man, that could be terrifying sometimes.
And honestly, it just doesn't feel good. That whole vibration that whole harmonics, it starts to come through the steering wheel and the pedal and the car shakes and it
that's
just doesn't.
That's warped rotors usually, right?
Yeah,
and the uneven pads and
So and then there's the safety function, right?
Ooh, yeah.
So I think just throwing in those things immediately gets your car feeling a whole bunch better right off the bat.
It's making me think I need to replace the brakes on the Cressida because I have definitely done some heavier stops and it's just like, oh dear God, what's going on? The whole thing just like starts to freak out.
And the thing is, when you start to have that brake that's not adhering, when it gets to the point where you're getting a lot of that vibration, what's happening is you're actually losing contacts, or not in the sense you're thinking of. It's not that bad, but it does reduce brake time.
Well, I mean, it does. You're not using increase the whole pad.
Yeah, you're wobbling around there. So doing those things I think are great pieces. And like I said, I think when you start to dive into it, you start to see other pieces and other things that you're like, oh, that's a problem. And as you fix some of those things, all of a sudden.
So now here's something to sort of throw in here because we've talked about my new daily driver.
Yep.
Definitely needs tires.
Right.
I don't know if it needs shocks.
Okay.
I think I'm used to coilovers, airbags, and having, a stiffer sort of suspension, or maybe, when I'm aired up, being a little more loosey-goosey.
Okay.
Would it make more sense, specifically for a vehicle like mine, which I guess I should probably reveal now is a 98 RAV4.
Right.
Would it make more sense to make it feel newer again, to maybe get a longer strut and do more of a lift, a smaller lift in an effort to...
I mean, I think for the sake of this stuff, that's really a modification point. You know what I mean?
But
if that's what you want.
Because you can't just get
you can't just get a longer shock and all of a sudden raise your car. Like you're gonna have to put in either a taller spring or a spacer or something to the
Okay,
effect
fair.
to allow that. So doing it, you can't just really like you. I don't even know where you would start to find a longer shock. You'd have to go through one of those aftermarket companies to be able to
Fair
say,
enough. Okay.
you know, but as far as dampening and rebound and stuff, the stuff that you feel, the stuff that feels, smooth or not in the
Newer
car,
stuff will feel better.
yeah, for sure.
Okay,
So I think
fair.
those things are my go-tos. But there's other things that you could do to make your car feel better. You know, what other things do you do or have you done? Do you think to some cars?
Let me pull up some handy dandy notes here.
He's got notes.
I know. Well, I don't have a memory like this guy.
I don't think it's memory. I think it's just experience. Like it's like I've done so many of these different cars, and you get to a point. But
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd say another obvious one is like getting a detail.
yeah. So right. So then we're talking about a little bit more on the appearance side,
For
right?
sure.
So you want to make your car feel good driving wise. You also want to make it look a little bit better. Maybe make yourself feel like your car's not as beat to crap as it is.
Or it's not as old as it is.
It's fair.
Same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So
And that's another thing you could do yourself, potentially.
absolutely. I agree. You could, if you want to pay for a detail, that's cool. If you want to get your car detailed or detail it yourself, that's awesome. If you have the knowledge and the tools, I think it's a great thing to do. There's a lot of resources on the internet, and especially from our friends.
It is one hell of a skill.
Yeah, and especially from our friends at the Rag Company, their YouTube channel. Like you can go learn a lot of stuff there, and there's some great products, whether the G-Technic stuff or whatever it is that you can get that will really make the paint come back and remove swirl marks and take out some of those things. And while you're compounding, you may take out a lot of the little superficial scratches and things that are there and just make the car look better, right?
For sure. 100%.
And I think it would be ill to not mention the fact that you can also, since you're getting tires, if you're going to get around tires, if you want to make, whatever, you can throw another set of wheels on the car, right?
Yeah.
Right? Throw your favorite Konig wheels on the car. You don't have to go crazy in size. Keep the same size if you want to keep, your cost down or whatever it is. But freshen up the exterior. You just did if you're detailing, go ahead and freshen up the wheels too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, ideally you want it to sort of match. I mean, imagine if you got new wheels, but the paint still looks kind of shoddy, or vice versa. So yeah, no, I totally understand that.
I had bought a Honda Accord a long time ago that was like one of the first things I did. Tires, shocks, full round of brakes, and I put a new set of wheels on it. Just a machine face.
Now,
wheel.
did you do this before you even like test drove it? Like
no, I bought the car first.
Okay, so you actually drove the car and decided, like, I'm going to do these things, or independently of whether it felt good or not.
I bought the car.
Okay.
I drove it around. I made sure it had brakes and whatever, and so it probably had like 40% left on the tires, and the brakes probably were like half used or whatever it was. But before I started driving the car, before I even registered the car, I bought the car, and before I actually got the car, I went to Rock Auto and I bought a whole bunch of stuff, and then
Nice.
I bought a set of tires, and I had the wheels, I had a set of wheels. I mounted them up, put the wheels and tires on first.
Naturally.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's an easy thing to do.
Yeah,
Then, because I wasn't mounting them myself, so got them, put them on the car. I did a full round of brakes when the wheels and tires were off the, when I took them off. Did the brakes in those corners, put the wheels on, and then probably like maybe like a week later, I went back and put a round of shocks in. Now, that really stiffened up the car, and then it gave me time to look at some other things. There wasn't really anything mechanically that was off with the car.
I mean, it's a Honda.
Yeah, right.
So how?
Yeah. So there's that stuff. I also think that, like one of the other things that's incredibly overlooked, it's also, depending on what tools you have, it can be difficult, is things like bushings. Bushings can provide you the most new feel in a car. You don't realize, but when you hear a clunking in certain parts of the suspension, when you feel that rumbling, that the thing where you feel like there's a lot of things transmitting back through, to me, in my opinion, it's usually one of two things. I mean, we're not talking about tie rod ends and stuff, but it's usually motor mounts that are worn to crap or bushings. And
Because all that stuff is usually rubber.
yeah, right. And so like, you know, I mean, tie rods, ball joints. I mean, tie rod ends, you know, ball joints, inner tie rods, you know, all those things. Those are obviously mechanical things that you should inspect. Period. And if they're bad, replace them. But you know, you'd be surprised. Motor mounts, trans mounts, things like that can really have things flopping all over. Because the more they wear, the more that engine is in engine and tranny, they're just moving all over the place, and that creates a tremendous amount of harmonics. And in addition to that, you know, when you lean on the pedal, that thing goes one way or another, right? So I think that, you know, bushings can easily be a really good thing you should focus on. You know, and you said about the detailing. Another good point, if you want to talk about the exterior, is if you got a lot of dents and dings and stuff like that, PDR, if your paint's in good shape, like paintless dent removal is fantastic. Some of these guys, they charge $1.50 a panel if you're just working with like little tiny things, and then they'll price you out accordingly. You know, if there's a lot of like big stuff or stuff that they need a lot of time on. But I'll tell you, some of these PDR guys, they are incredible.
Yeah, weren't you trying to like study that once?
I was. I went out and bought a basic PDR kit, and I tried, and I realized how hard it was. So
I feel like I would get really frustrated by it.
It was very difficult, and I think that it's one of those skills that you just have to learn over the course of years, you know? So PDR, certainly worth the money. And these guys, I mean, you want to see some amazing stuff? Go on to YouTube. And, you know, Google like, you know, I mean, and search like, PDR, skill, whatever. You can watch cars that you're like, that car is totaled. And these guys like pull it back from nothing. It's incredible. I mean, it may take them all day long, and they may charge you a couple grand, but it would have been an $8,000 hit at the body shop, and they would have had to repaint. And you know, I think what's interesting about PDR too, especially if like, you know, if you get one that's really good, and like let's say you have major quarter damage, you say there's no way they're going to get it out. That needs a quarter replacement. So what does a quarter replacement mean?
You have to start cutting.
Oh yeah, so you're cutting away the original sheet metal. These guys are finding a used quarter off of another car, which they're then going to
weld
fit.
on.
Yeah, they're going to fit. They're going to weld. They're going to fit. They're going to fix, because if there's any damage or cosmetic damage, to make it, you know, perfect again. They're going to fill it with seam sealer and a whole bunch of stuff. And listen, I'm not saying that there's not really gifted body men out there that do.
Or women.
Or women, body people out there that do really...
That sounds weird, body people.
that do really great work. But what I am saying is that if you gave me the choice of having an OE panel with OE paint... without any of the other ruckus, and have my car looking 98%...
Yeah.
every day of the week.
100%, yeah.
And what these guys can do, man, or girls... what these people can do, unbelievable. I mean,
we should have one on the podcast. I can't believe we don't know a PDR specialist. That would be cool to talk to them.
We can find one.
Right?
We can find one. We're going to find one. That's going to be...
I think that would be a really interesting podcast.
These guys, I'm telling you, man, they bring these things back from... I mean, like I've watched some of these guys, and I've said, there is just no way they're going to be able to fix that car. And they... make it look fantastic. It really is pretty incredible.
Well, all right. Making your car feel new again. PDR, go figure.
Yeah.
Well, I think this was a topic of debate, maybe just between us, but along those same lines, sometimes I would argue doing a respray can make your car feel new. Now, I'm not talking about like a $10,000 SEMA job
You're
here.
talking like a Mako special.
Yeah, or you know, or treating yourself to something a little, you know, a little next level. I mean, my thought process there is strictly coming from a standpoint of not only making your car feel new again, but also the idea that you would be keeping it for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, look,
I'm talking sentimentally, you know. Like
I think if it's the right car, if it's really a car that you love and you want to keep, I get it. But like, if it's your daily driver and you want to make the car look better, like, you know, I don't know. And the reason is because, like, if you're proficient enough that you can do a lot of the body work and stuff yourself, the prep, and then after you prep,
drive it to
Mako,
yeah,
and get a paint job, and then bring it back and spend time, you know, wet color sanding and polishing and you know, and stuff like that. I think you can get a really, really decent look from a Mako cheap paint job.
That would be another really interesting video. I don't know about a podcast, but that would be.
But we've seen stuff like that before.
Yeah,
I mean, I think
I don't
guys,
think I have.
The Throttle guys. I think Ricky from Throttle, he did it on an FD that he had for his wife that he was building. I think Gingium just did a Mako paint job.
I was gonna ask.
So
nice.
So that stuff exists. But you know, I remember we did that on a car in like 2006, 2005. You know what I mean? It was a Volvo. My friend had a red Volvo, one of those turbo wagons.
Oh, wagon.
Yep.
Okay.
And the paint was, you know, like it was almost like that maroon faded thing.
Where there was a lot of missing clear coat.
Oh yeah, it was toast.
Okay,
and so we flat out just we prepped the hell out of it.
Didn't take apart like the windows and everything, right?
Not the windows, no.
Just
we took, let me see. So we took the bumpers off. We prepped them, and we bolted them back on the car with just a couple of bolts so that they were attached to drive the car to Mako.
Yeah.
We took out, we did the same thing for a couple of things like grills and stuff like that. Because our plan was, this was our plan. Our plan was to prep the car, put the things back on the car that we would want to remove for paint, and just install them with a couple of fasteners to get us to Mako.
Oh, and then remove them at Mako?
And then we got to the parking lot, and we took a whole bunch of stuff off the car, and then
That's awesome.
And then we let the guys, you know, drive it in, and they did whatever prep they could.
And they must have thought you were nuts.
No, actually, they were super appreciative because
wow,
because we weren't paying them for prep, so then they'd have to sit there and they have to mask certain things off and go through things and like.
Got it.
And honestly, most of them, when you get a bad Mako paint job, usually your complaint isn't always the paint. It's because there's no prep done and because the pieces that are on the car end up getting overspray. So we had already taken the bull by the horns and tried to eliminate the things that would make the paint
really
job
cool.
look crappy.
I mean, that's next level for
we took badges off. We took windshield wipers out. We took the cowl plastics off.
Sure. By the windshield.
Yep.
Yeah.
We took the grill. We took the grill off. We didn't drive with the grill down there. The bumpers we ended up color matching because they weren't. They were like the black.
Oh,
so
two-tone action.
Yeah, so we prepped them, you know, in Scotch-Brite and scuffed them and stuff like that. And when we pulled them off, we let them. We literally pulled them off the car, but we said we want these painted too, and we let them paint them off the car.
Yeah.
So they could get in between everything.
Yeah. That sounds awesome.
We threw the guy. At the time. We threw the guy like an extra like $70 or something like that to like mask off like the radiator and stuff like that because we were afraid they weren't going to do it. So we were just like, look, you know, we pulled the bump. Would you mind? Like, we're trying to get the best. And the guy was like, no, it's cool. And we gave him some money just to make sure that would really happen.
Yeah.
What else did we pull out? So when we got there, we took taillights out, and I'm sure that they would do some of this, but
You wanted to
We wanted
give
to
them
make
the
sure.
most.
We wanted to
yeah.
make sure that when they painted this car, there wasn't anything left for interpretation. We took bumpers off, taillights off. As funny enough, we actually even dropped the rear catback exhaust section. We didn't unbolt it, but we dropped it off the hangers and we just laid it down once they got it into the bay.
Why?
Because we didn't want to have he had made like an aftermarket exhaust, like he had made with nice mufflers and stuff. We didn't want any of the overspray. We didn't know what they were going to mask off or not. So we dropped it down so it was out of the range of when they were spraying onto that upper. Remember, the bumper's off. So they're going to spray the rear body panel and everything.
Oh, I see. Okay,
so,
yeah.
So they even went to the rear body panels and stuff like that.
Jeez, this is next level.
Then we got then we went to go pick up the car once it was done. We carefully got as many things put back into place as possible.
Yeah.
We didn't put the rear bumper on. We put the front bumper on with a couple bolts, and the rear bumper we just zip tied the plate was on the hatch, I think.
Okay.
So we put the bumper into the back area. We drove it back to his house.
How far was it? Just out of sheer curiosity.
I don't know, like 15 minutes.
So a decent distance.
15 minutes. Yeah, but I mean the car was together. I mean, it's not like it didn't run. It just
No, I know, but I mean, you just get this new paint job. You have to drive 15 minutes. I mean, you can get little rock chips and whatever.
Well, yeah, but they baked the car and stuff like that. I mean, the car was dry. It wasn't like we didn't wait for it.
Right.
Like we came back a couple days later.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So like we came back like 3 days later. We picked up the car. We drove it back, and once we got it back and we had everything set up, we went through and we wet sanded and polished it to get all the orange peel out and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And once we cut and buffed it, like it looked pretty good. I mean, it wasn't bad. Like so again, I think that's the deal. Like, why do you pay so much money? I mean, nowadays the reason I would say it's so tough is paint and materials cost so much money. So there are no real, effectively cheap paint jobs anymore. With all that said, I think that may be on the higher end of
no, for sure,
pieces.
and that's why I said it was a subject of debate. That's definitely on the higher end of the spectrum.
Yeah,
for sure.
And I also think that like going along with the detailing stuff, I think detailing the interior is just as important so that you're sitting in the car feels good. And Luis brought in one, and I was like, but like, no, I get where he's coming from.
I do also.
Luis always said, even when I throw in a new air freshener, I kind of feel like, and I get that to an extent. You know what I mean? Like you get in, the first thing you get is the smell. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? The first thing you get is that.
You
smell.
Open the door and it's just like,
yeah, like hits you in the face. So it's like when you get that feeling like right. But and I think that there's other things that you could do to make the car feel newer. I mean, you might, like you said, maybe things like getting an alignment and getting the wheels rebalanced, and if you're not changing things out, like there's things there for sure.
I thought of a good one that I totally forgot.
Yeah,
headlight restoration.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
Oh my goodness, that's a good one. Does that make a difference? Yeah. Not only can you see better when you're driving,
it looks better.
It literally, yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's so easy.
I've done it before, and I'm, not the brightest.
Well, it is. It's so easy. I actually keep 3 of those restoration kits. I'll give you a random tip, whatever.
Okay.
Amazon. If you search on Amazon, don't look for name brands, just look for restoration kits or anything like that. They randomly have the cheapest deals on random kits. They come with the attachment for your drill.
To your drill, yeah.
The pads, the different throwaway sanding levels, and stuff like that. It will just be that stuff. Mm-hmm. But what you do is you take that with a little bit of compound. You start with the you could start with the sanding and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Just mix up a little bit of either I use like soap. I use like a car wash soap and some water to give it like some lubrication when you're whatever.
Yeah, sure.
So I'll use that during the sanding process. Just keep spraying with a spray bottle while I go whatever. Masking tape. mask off around the headlight so that you don't burn through the paint. It's super easy, even with like a 1000 grit, pad, to touch the edge of your fender and take some paint off.
Oh yeah.
Put the masking tape around, spray down the light, get it clean. Then start spraying it with the stuff while you sand it off. Change the different levels of sandpaper. Do a pass or two on each. And then you're gonna throw some compound onto that buffing pad, and you're gonna, buff the light out.
Right, buff the scratches out.
But I find these. What I do is every time I come across a kit, and it happens a lot, where like there'll be a $4.99. I'll buy one, or and I have 3 in there, and because look, you never like when you go to do them. Like, or help with the headlights or whatever, then you got to go to the store and spend $12, $15, whatever it is. So I just keep a couple in my bin. And they work for, like, I've done taillights. I've done headlights. I've done side markers. I've done, like all these different things.
It's such a great way to make the car feel new again.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
And so those kits are super easy. And I'll tell you one other thing that I find to be really good, if you feel like going to this extent, those kit, when you do that to plastic, it doesn't last forever.
No.
So what I like to do, if you got enough time, is when I get done with a light, I like to clear coat it. You clear coat the light very gently, very carefully. No drip marks, no runs, nothing like that. You got to be good with it. And if you're not really good and you want to spend $50, drive over to your local body shop and give them the lights you just restored and say, hey, how much just to clear coat these real quick? Because what you'll find is clear coat is a universal type thing, and they're going to paint every single car that they have with clear coat. The end stage of every single one of those things, they're not going to do single stage paint, so they're going to paint it with clear coat. So when they get done with every car, the last stage is clear coat. You know what they're going to do? They're going to hand them to their painter, and they're going to say, "Hey, when you get done with this car, before when you're done clear coating, just spray these lights real quick." And he's going to take his $50. He's going to put it in his pocket,
right?
And you can come back in a day or two and pick up your lights, and now they're protected. So that's what I like to do if I'm going to restore something and I want it to really live for another, 3-4 years.
Versus ceramic coating?
That's a good question. It's a question I don't really know the answer to. I've never ceramic coated plastic like that. And I don't know if there's special types of ceramic coat. I don't know if that would keep the light from hazing again. Plastic hazes a lot of times because of outgassing. So,
you mean from the bulb?
No, outgassing is with plastics. What happens is the more heat that you get from the sun and different things like that, it causes a plastic to actually release a gas. And depending on how that gas goes, a lot of times that's what starts to cause that hazing. So, I don't know, more information than you need to know on this podcast, but
I was gonna say,
but that's
more than enough info.
Yeah, but look, I mean, hey, when you start talking about it, these are all the things that come into our little morning debates.
And why not make a podcast about it?
So anyhow, that's do we have any more tips? I think
that's solid.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
That's solid for
pretty
sure.
Good. You're welcome. We helped you out big time.
There you go.
But seriously, if you're watching this, like I said, we do these things to try to be contributive to the community and to and kind of share what we know with you, and maybe you could share some things with others.
I'm sure there's something we forgot.
I'm positive that there's, with all the car people we have out there, that they're gonna know some really cool things that they do when they buy used cars or get a car that's new to them. To make the car feel better, fresher, newer, etc. So if you have any tips for anybody else, throw it down below. Let us know, one, kind of why you do it, what it is. Two, let us know kind of roughly how much does it cost. Is it just time, or is it, you need to have these supplies? And three, do you find it to hold up? Do you find it really adds a lot of value for yourself and whoever's going to be driving the car?
It's fair.
Yeah, I think they'll do it. So let us know. And that's pretty much it for this week. Don't forget, we have if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. I mean, if we've gotten this far, I'm hoping you will.
Why are we still asking? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, right. Also, don't forget that we go live on Instagram and Facebook every real Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard, and we do that right before this podcast. So you can come from the live over to here, and then you can follow us, and we can have conversation or whatever it may be.
We answer questions on here too.
Yeah, we do.
So,
we do. So you're welcome to do that. But like I said, we're live all the time. On Wednesdays 2 p.m. Come ask us questions, and we always put up a new piece of content on Fridays. Usually around 2 p.m., but definitely on Fridays. So make sure you check us out, subscribe. We're going to be doing some giveaway stuff coming up soon. We got a lot of stuff coming out for the whole new year at some point. So there's a lot of stuff that's going to be going on.
For sure.
Don't miss out.
It's only up from here.
Or something. Anyhow, we hope you have a good week. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we will catch you next one. On the next one.